Hey, welcome. Today, we are cracking open a seriously powerful framework for solving problems, one that's been road tested for over 2,000 years. And trust me, this isn't just some ancient philosophy. It's a super practical, logical tool you can literally start using today. So let's dive right in and see how this thing works.
You know that feeling, right? Some challenge pops up, you think you've handled it, and then boom, another one appears. Or even worse, the same problem comes back wearing a different hat. It's this universal human thing, feeling caught in a cycle of dissatisfaction. But what if there was a systematic way to actually break that loop for good?
Now, here's where it gets really mind-blowing. The whole idea we're digging into today is this parallel. On one side, you've got this ancient spiritual teaching. And on the other, you have the absolute gold standard for logical thinking, the scientific method. And as you're about to see, the way they approach tackling problems is, it's shockingly similar.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll introduce this incredible method. Then we're going to break it down step by step, and you'll see how each stage lines up with its scientific counterpart. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by showing you how you can basically become the scientist of your own mind.
Okay, let's get into the framework itself. And just to be clear, this isn't a set of beliefs you're supposed to blindly accept. Think of it more as a hands-on process for investigation known as the Four Noble Truths. In Thai, it's called Arya Saka 4. And to put it simply, it's a method for solving our problems and getting rid of that feeling of dissatisfaction by really truly understanding cause and effect. You could almost call it a diagnosis and a prescription for the human condition. And this right here illustrates the whole process perfectly. See, it's not a straight line. It's not a one-and-done fix. No, it's a cycle, a continuous loop of observing, diagnosing, setting a goal, and taking action. Each part just flows logically into the next one, almost exactly like a well-designed experiment. So let's get to the very first step, and you'll see how this whole thing builds. You know, every great discovery, every single solution, it always starts in the exact same place, admitting, hey, we've got a problem here. So the first noble truth is dukkha. Now, that word often gets translated as suffering. But honestly, it's so much broader than that. It's any kind of unease, stress, dissatisfaction, from a full-blown crisis down to a tiny, nagging annoyance. So just like a scientist who has to define their research question, the first, most crucial step is to just clearly and honestly say, okay, here's the problem. Right. So once we've named the problem, we can't just slap a Band-Aid on the symptoms. A good scientist and a good inner problem solver digs way deeper to find the root cause. What's really driving this feeling of dissatisfaction? And that brings us to the second noble truth, samudaya, which is all about the cause. The Buddha pinpointed the root cause of our dissatisfaction as tanha, or craving. And there it is. That's our hypothesis. The problem of dukkha exists because of tanha. It's that relentless wanting, grasping, and pushing away that just keeps us completely stuck. And this hypothesis gets super specific. Tanha isn't just one vague thing. First, there's the craving for pleasant stuff, delicious food, entertainment, all that good stuff. Then there's the craving to be something, to be successful, to be liked, to have a certain identity. And maybe the most powerful of all, there's the craving to not be, that desperate need to get rid of awful feelings, like anxiety or boredom or pain. I mean, you see how this covers basically every human motivation, right? Okay, so we've defined our problem, and we've got a solid hypothesis for what's causing it. Now, before we just jump into action, we need to know what we're actually aiming for. What does a successful outcome even look like? The third noble truth, nirodha, defines that goal. It basically describes a state where the problem, dukkha, is just gone. Why? Because its cause, tanha, has stopped. And this isn't about becoming some emotionless robot. It's about reaching this state of deep peace and freedom from that constant pull of craving. It's the clear desired outcome of our whole experiment. This quote really just nails the whole idea of nirodha. It's not about losing anything. It's about gaining freedom. It's the peace that shows up when you finally let go of that frantic need for things to be different than they are. That is our target. Okay, we have our problem, we have our hypothesis, we have our desired outcome. Now it's time for the final and honestly the most important part, the procedure. How do we actually get from here to there? The fourth noble truth is Magga, which means the path. This is the how-to manual. It's the set of actions, the training, the experiment we run in our own lives to test our hypothesis, that by dealing with craving, we can end dissatisfaction. This is where the theory becomes practice.
And this path is incredibly detailed. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path. And you should think of it less like a strict list of rules and more like a complete training program for your mind and your life. It covers everything, from your perspective and your intentions, all the way to your words, actions, and even your focus. Each piece works together to systematically loosen the grip that craving has on you.
So let's just zoom out for a second and look at the whole picture. When you put these two systems right next to each other, well, the parallel is just impossible to ignore. And here it is, laid out crystal clear. Dukkha, that's defining the problem. Samudaya, that's forming your hypothesis about the cause. Nirodha, that's defining what success looks like. And Magga, that is the repeatable experiment you conduct to get that result. It is a complete, logical, and totally empirical process. And that's really the main takeaway here. This ancient wisdom isn't asking for blind faith. It's inviting you to run the experiment for yourself. What makes it so incredibly powerful is that just like science, it's all based on direct observation. It gives you a framework to become a scientist of your own experience, using your own life as the laboratory to figure out what causes you stress and what leads to genuine, lasting well-being. So the only question left is, where are you going to start? What's the first bit of unease or dissatisfaction that you're going to put under your own microscope? The lab is open, and the method's been proven for 2,500 years. The experiment is all yours.